Thank you. Then I had to think gavel. It's down to the truck. Yeah.
All right, well, that's like fake gavel sound since we didn't bring the gavel. Welcome to our first, I think this is the first time that we've done this. This is our State Board of Education Committee meeting, and we call it the Road Show. Last year we changed the amended bylaws, which enables us to take the show on the road, to take the meetings out into the public, out throughout the state of Georgia. That's the plan. That's the idea. And so, of course, Chair's privilege, we didn't come to my own turf. And so welcome to Middle Georgia. Welcome to Macon, Georgia. And it's very exciting that you all are here. It's exciting that my board is here. Some of my board members came last night and enjoyed some of downtown Macon. I'll be able to do that again this evening. I live about 20 minutes from here, so this was a rough drive for me. I jokingly said that I think it's probably easier for a lot of people to get here than it is Atlanta, and you probably live closer to Atlanta. It's a lot quicker and easier, except for the fact that we have our interstate poured up, and it will be finished soon, by the year 2030. So that's the way it is. But thank you all so much for coming. We are the cherry blossom capital of the world, despite what Washington, D.C. likes to say. I encourage you to come in March for the Cherry Blossom Festival. It's a wonderful time. I sound like I work for the Chamber of Commerce now, don't I? But anyway, thank you all again for coming. And without any further ado, we'll get started with the Rules Committee. And I believe Mr. Kenneth Mason, our Vice Chair, is going to be running the Rules Committee. Mr. Mason, do you have the floor?
Yes, we do.
Very good.
And I believe we have, yes. Yeah, I believe we're doing budget. Yeah.
Do budget first. Okay, we'll do budget first. All right, Mr. Donald.
Oh, we're going to do the welcome.
We'll do welcome. Okay. Never mind.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kenny Moore. I'm the State Schools Director. Thank you all for being here. It's a privilege to have you here. I'm not sure if we've had this happen in a while under Dr. Cindy Gibson's tenure, but we're in a prestigious place. This auditorium didn't used to look like this. Superintendent Woods was down here for graduation. A number of you have been here since then. Because of the work of the state board and helping me move funds over to another state agency, refurbishing something like this. And you'll see advancements in other parts of the campus as well, but I would think anyone think this place is beautiful. It's gorgeous. And our kids deserve nothing but the best. And so this is because of the efforts of you all here, and I want you to enjoy the venue that you're working in today with the next 2 days. So if you look on the PowerPoint, we always start off everything we do with the state school's vision and mission statements. And so that stays standard, so it keeps us all focused on our efforts and what we are focused on as a team and a group. So we can move to the next slide. So our purpose. So you know at the agency, we look at the whole child, and we use our continuous improvement wheel as a focus for everything we do. And we run the lens of our work through what you see here, the bulleted items for if we should be doing something or not doing something. That's what we evaluate everything that we do, because at the center of this work is the whole child. So next slide, please. Curriculum instruction and school effectiveness, this is a big deal. There's a lot to this. There's been a lot of advancements that have happened in this area. We've had a number of changes at the department, including new additions to staff like Dr. April Aldridge, amazing people that have come on board like Dr. Keith Osborne that have helped us think differently about how we deliver education, teaching, and learning to students, and we are looking at that as well and implementing things. So we'll move to the next slide. So what we're going to talk about now are a couple of things, a couple of the content areas. The first is ELA. As many of you know, if you've been on the board for a while, it's taken us 2 years to implement our ELA curriculum, because you can imagine we have 3 state schools that are 200 miles apart. We have 2 schools that work for, that serve students that are deaf or hard of hearing. We have one school that serves students that have visual impairments. So how do you possibly begin creating a common curriculum amongst those schools? And we've achieved that. And so we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about our math resources, because we know that's hot off the press with the implementation of our new math standards and the support we've received from the DOE of how we can do that, which is absolutely amazing. And that's why curriculum and a focus and support on curriculum is so important, because you're going to see later in this, people often ask, even board members and others, where are you with formative assessments, outcomes? You can't get to any of that until you start right here with the curriculum. Do you have a common curriculum? What are you using? Those types of things. What resources do you have to help teachers? What supports do you have to help teachers? So I'm going to turn this part over to Dr. Gibson. And before I do, I want to thank Dr. Gibson. Not only is she putting on today and tomorrow helping you all, last Friday, if you see in your packet, we were here last Friday, like I was saying to some of you, we had a level up meeting with my administrative team, so there were about 30 people involved. And the topics are really relevant for you as board members, our local board, to know that we are focused on, so we're not dropping the ball or missing something. And you'll see that hopefully we are not only just in line with things, we are ahead of the curve of things that are coming. So Cindy, Dr. Gibson, put on that event Friday, and now she's putting on today and tomorrow. So we thank her for doing that. It's Southern hospitality at its finest. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gibson. Thank you.
I'm Cindy Gibson, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here today. And what we're going to talk about with the ELA rollout and then the new math standards is a culmination, and we're not even culminating, but it's the 2-year point of working with state schools under the direction of Dr. Moore, but with the specific and amazing expertise of Dr. Cassandra Matthews and Dr. Stacy Tucci. So where we're going is when we look at standardized testing, when a student comes here to the academy or goes to one of the schools for the day, placement at one of our schools is all about to what extent is the disability affecting achievement in the school. And we are surround services and a concerted effort to serve all of the needs of every child that comes here. So with that in mind, typically a child who comes here is not thriving on standardized testing. Do we have gifted students who do come here? Yes, they do. It may mean they need more in-depth Braille instruction. There'll be a need represented there that we are the best placement to fill. So with that in mind, what we have done is we've moved through to a common curriculum with the 3 state schools and formative assessment, common formative assessment, which we can now do because we have the common curriculum. And so it's all about glow and grow, and we're doing both, and we're not through doing both of those. So I'll leave you with the main word is adaptation. Success for a student with a disability is all about adaptation. How do we adapt the curriculum to the child, not the child, to the curriculum? So with that, I would like Don Day, who is our principal of curriculum and assistive technology, to talk to you about our summer work and what we do to adapt for our students. Next slide, please.
Dr. Cassandra Matthews worked with Dr. Gibson, and she formed a team here at GAB. And we worked this summer on Unique, Wonders, and the Study Sync curriculum. And with our students, we can't just order books and just it's going to be like it's supposed to. We have to adapt materials. And our teachers worked hard this summer making story boxes, and I've got some samples here for y'all to look at about story boxes. I've got the assistive technology. This is called Chameleon. It thumb drive in it with print, and it translates into Braille. And then, of course, we have the large print in Braille. And then the story boxes, or especially for our VI with additional disabilities. We have tactile objects, which of course the best object is the actual real object. But each object represents some concept in the story. And those are the things that we worked on this summer, and Dr. Matthews and Dr. Gibson got teacher input on the fidelity checklist, and so that they can make sure that we're implementing with fidelity and that our students have a way to show growth, and that we can show that our students are growing from when we get them, because we get them mostly middle school age. And when we get them, we take them from where they are and try to get them as far as we can. Next slide. Right. Dr. Matthews made a folder for all 3 schools where we are able to access any materials, resources, or anything that will help us implement the curriculum. And we're very thankful for that. Next slide. Right. And then math resources. The math, we have new math standards, K through 12. We had DOE provided professional learning during post-planning and pre-planning, so our teachers can be sure that they can teach the standards in a way that our students can understand. Next slide. And with the standards, they provided resources, and the resources are wonderful. The thing is, our teachers have to adapt the resources. And I brought a math book just so y'all can see some of the ways that they have to do that. Next slide. So with that, we're implementing the math standards, and our teacher, Mr. Collins, he worked with a team with Dr. Matthews, working on how we can implement the new math standards. So that's where we're at right now, and we're going to continue to do our best, and under Dr. Gibson's leadership, to try to get where our students can access the curriculum in a way that they can see. Next slide.
So we're not through growing, and we're definitely not through glowing. So we have our next steps. Continue to share resources with staff, transfer files from teams to local school shared drives, use the resources our teams have created, our state schools teams, and monitor the use of the resources using walkthroughs and lesson plan reviews. And with that, we have monthly walkthroughs with Ron Fuss, who is our school effectiveness leader, and also Dr. Cassandra Matthews. And then in these next 3 months, we will be beginning walkthroughs with Dr. Stacy Tucci and others to look at our implementation of the curriculum and what are ways that the district core growth team can support our efforts. Next slide, please.
And so if you saw from the agenda that I had our team come down here on Friday and meet, and we discussed and worked through, you saw that we had a part of the session about the new early literacy law. Again, we were wanting to get ahead of that, and particularly for our 3 schools, literacy is always front and foremost for us. If any of you have been on the board for a while, you know we spend a lot of time talking about literacy and language acquisition, development, language nutrition, those types of things. So we are extremely pleased by this law. Many of you were with us when we got the deaf law passed that was instrumental in requiring language assessment at certain points. So this is totally in line with that law. And we believe that it's a fundamental starting point to get students on a trajectory towards success. So we'll switch to the next slide. Thank you. So when we dove into this law, and as board members, you know it's pretty dense. There's a lot to it. What we did is carved out the deliverables as a team. And when we did that, the things that you'll see highlighted in yellow, and I'm not going to read through all these things because I want to get to our students here, and you can ask me questions later. These are things that the state schools, because of the very nature of who we are and what we do, we've already been doing, or it's already been happening. And I would dare say that my colleagues around the state have been doing the same thing, whether their population is like mine or it's general ed or something, because it's the right work to be doing right now. So I say that to say you're going to see a lot of highlighted areas on here of things that happen. So you can move to the next slide. More deliverables that we carved out for ourselves that we're going to take this and create plans so that we can address them specifically. Next slide, please. Again, we've captured what the next deliverable is as of that date. Next slide, please. Same thing. Next slide, please. So it shows you there's a roadmap for all of us to follow. And if we all do these things as leaders and school system leaders and as an agency, we will get here together because it's laid out for us. All of the hard work on this front end as far as where we're going has been done. We just need to work together as a team to get there as schools and school systems. Next slide, please. So the next steps for implementation, I'm going to pull a team together after we just saw the information you saw. It's hot off the press for my team as of last Friday, literally at this school. So I'm going to pull them together and we're going to figure out how we are going to address those things. One thing that you have seen through here, and you have to be familiar with as board members, is what is that assessment, the assessment that's going to be used. We have one already for the state schools. It's the VRI. It's the Basic Reading Inventory. I've shared information about that with you before, about how that is probably one of the better assessments for us and our specialized needs at our state schools, and we'll get into that more. But know that that team has happened, so we feel confident that as a team we are well ahead of where we need to be to meet the what's been outlined in this specific law. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Gibson, talking about our formative assessments. And again, I'm going to repeat, it's hard to have formative assessments across all three schools when you don't have a common curriculum. And that's what we spent the last 2 years with your support developing for ELA. Now we're taking on math. You're going to see some things in the executive session about bringing some very talented people on to help us to get there. Because if you don't have that common curriculum amongst all the schools, how do you leverage resources? How do you leverage expertise? Those types of things. So it's very innovative what we're doing, considering how we're structured and how far the schools are apart. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gibson. She'll take on this part.
So I really can't add to what Dr. Moore has already said, so I'll repeat. We really can't look at common formative assessments without a common curriculum. So that is a great mastery for us to have arrived at that point that we have been studying for 2 years, so that we have a common curriculum. So then we have formative assessments 3 times a year, which Dr. Tucci and her team will then analyze beyond what we do at the school level, looking for ways we can generalize and ways that we can support and improve. So it's not that all children in a certain grade will take these same formative assessments. They will take according to what curriculum they're in, if they're in the unique curriculum, if they're in Study Sync, or if they're in Wonders, which is elementary, that you may be very familiar with from our mainstream schools. So it's different formative assessments based on the skill and the level of the child. And that also is a great accomplishment for us to be at that point. Next slide. So what I want to tell you about this slide, and I think that in all of your years of working with the state schools, you are aware that at the Georgia Academy for the Blind, students who are blind or visually impaired will have a significant weakness in math as compared to the students at the schools for the deaf. And then the opposite is true for the students at the schools for the deaf are more language deprived. So naturally their scores would suffer, not a good word, but would be a little lower on the ELA. So like we've said about formative assessment, how do you know if you move the needle if you don't know where you started? So that's what we have here. Now this slide for us is going to have, and I can't really see where we are with it, but what you'll see from that is the BRI shows our students, like 42% of our 9th through 12th grade reading at 9th through 12th grade. Right, well then look at the test. The BRI, we started this, and I'm really making this fast. The BRI is an older inventory. It is what reading specialists like myself would call a quick and dirty test to see where a child performs at the instructional level or at the independent level. It's not an end-all be-all test as our state standardized milestones. So the BRI, you have to look at what does it test, and it's more of a screener. But when we started on this journey, it's what we had in common, all three schools. So that's our starting point. And now Stacy Tucci and the team have adapted it so that the BRI will be taken by students for whom it is appropriate to take, and the others will take the other assessments. And that might not be very clear to you, but if you visit our classrooms, it will be very clear. So, next slide. So here is our slide that really talks about what we're doing, and I won't read it to you, but it shows what I've been talking about students doing the formative assessment 3 times a year that is appropriate for that student in that class. Next slide. Dr. Walsh.
Thank you, Dr. Gibson. I think one thing you'll all walk away with, and we'll get into more detail with that prior slide talking about data and where we're moving, maybe at a subsequent meeting, we can dig a lot deeper into that data. But with schools like this, and when you're looking at probably schools around the entire state and subpopulations, one student can throw the data in one way or another. We know statistically that's how things work. We need to be mindful of that as adults so that we're not doing things that are punitive for schools but supportive of them and classroom teachers and things that are happening. They're working so hard. So what we're going to do now, you're going to be here for the next 2 days. So you have all of us to ask questions about this facility, any question about anything we've done so far. I can work with Lisa Kennemore, our board liaison, for subsequent meetings to dig deep into some of the data, some of the questions you might walk away with, because I know we moved so quickly getting you ready for today and the intro. But as of now, I'd like to ask Dr. Gibson to have some of our GAB students come up and perform for you all. And many of you that have been here for graduation and other presentations know how special this is for our students. They're exemplary. If this doesn't warm your heart, and set the tone for the next 2 days for the amazing work that you all volunteered to do. I don't know what will. And so this is one of the amazing things that we do as a state school. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gibson, who will bring the students up and perform. Thank you.
So I just want you to know that our phenomenal music director, Miss Catherine Holloway, did all the paperwork so that we could pay the royalties and perform Junie B. Jones Jr., the musical. And so they performed it last spring, 2 daytime performances and an evening performance. But the royalties are still good. So she's doing it again. September the 21st at 10:30 in the morning. September the 21st at 6:30 in the evening. It's a Thursday. And then Friday, September the 22nd at 10:30 in the morning. If you want to come and bring your friends, please let us know. When you see this today, you will be blown out of your seat. And then she's got another play, musical, for the spring. So we'll let you know about that one later. Okay, so with that, I want to present Ms. Holloway, and she'll present her students.
Good morning.
Morning.
And
Morning.
thank you very, very much for this wonderful opportunity for me to show off my students. Have you enjoyed?
Thank you all for that. If you are a theater nerd like I am, and you buy pit or orchestra seats at a Broadway show, those tickets are about $400. And you don't get that close. So everybody needs to throw the check. You don't need one. Great, thank you so much. Does anybody have, I don't know where Kenny is. Anybody have any questions real quick for Kenny? I mean, we're going to be here for the next day, and we're going to do a tour tomorrow, is my understanding, of the facility. And so if you've got some questions, be thinking of that. Kenny will tell you all about what they do here. And then if you've got questions about state schools, I know sometimes we have a committee, a state schools committee, and we oversee. These are our schools. These are the board's schools. And so I think if you've got questions about that, let's ask Kenny throughout the next couple of days and educate ourselves. And even the more senior board members, sometimes there are things that come up, new things that we don't know about. And let's keep abreast of what's going on. Because again, these are our schools. Our schools, that's right.
They are our schools.
All right, well, it is 10:35, and so we will move on to the Budget Committee. Mr. Donaldson, do you have a quorum for your committee?
Mr. Chairman, there is a quorum of the Budget Committee,
Very good.
and Rusk is, wow, you just appeared. That's great. We will get started. Item 1.
All right. This is our FY24 agricultural education grants. These grants provide funds for the enrichment and educational experiences of integral agricultural education programs through the local school system. The total grant amount is $409,000.
Any questions or comments? Item 2.
This is our state interagency services grant to provide teachers and support staff for students being served in crisis stabilization programs, competency restoration programs, and community group homes located in LEAs, Department of Corrections, the Department of Juvenile Justice, and the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency. The total contract amount is not to exceed $2,539,213.
Any questions or comments? Item 3.
This is our contract with the Georgia International Convention Center. This contract will procure facilities, equipment, and services to host approximately 1,800 attendees at 2 separate conferences within the series. The total contract amount is not to exceed $815,955.
Any questions or comments?
One question.
Ms. Kennemore.
These meetings that are going to be February 13th and 14th and June 11th and 13th, is that just for DOE or is it inviting people across the state? Are we going to get information regarding them so we're able to attend?
Yeah, I mean, as far as looking at the meetings themselves, I mean, this is a conference has been going on as long as I've been up here, but it is for us to share information throughout the local SE or LEAs and stuff with their various people. But it's actually a combination, I believe. Sean, I think you could probably address that because this is actually multiple groups that will be meeting in this area.
We would love to have one of our federal statute, absolutely. But the first one every year, and we haven't for the last 1 year due to the pandemic, but the first in February will be our federal programs conference, and that's where we pull from, we serve the entire state, and that's to update them on any federal regulations, monitoring, grants, things of that nature. So, and then best practices across the state as well of how the federal funds are being used and the impacts to students. And then the next one that you see that will be later in the year, that will be what used to be our Ideas Conference, and that will be primarily for serving students with disabilities, so to reach out to our teachers and building level leaders. But we'll also be collaborating with other divisions across the agency, so we'll be working with teaching and instruction, we'll be working with STI, all the different divisions, whole child, to make sure that we have a collaborative conference. But we would be more than happy to have you guys there. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
And I think that the intent is to make sure that we're showing how we're actually more connected internally across the board. And so I think that's, a much better concept. to see how things integrate. Sometimes within districts, we find out they may not talk internally as well as we would like as well. So hopefully we can do a better job at sharing this is a best practice across the state. Yes, yeah. I mean, especially in the area of like, I'm just trying to think now with our state safety grants. One of the things we looked at that I think that for some of the ones that did not necessarily get accepted, with this first round, it was really just a lack that one group did not talk to another group to know this is, the responsibilities that we have, and especially anytime you deal with federal programs and money, it does have requirements that come with it, and we just have to, continue to do a better job at integrating and letting the left side know what the right side is doing.
Good, thank you. Any other questions? Item 4.
Item 4 is a contract with Keystone Peer Review Organization. This is to extend the expansion of the statewide employee assistant program contract with KEPRO to provide counseling services at no cost to all local education LEA employees. This total contract amount is not to exceed $1,800,000.
Any questions or comments? Ms. Ross?
Have we used them before?
Yes, this is
Okay.
the second year.
Second year, okay.
The only question I have is we're using our ESSER funds for this, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Once those run out, will this essentially probably cease?
I understand.
It's a good thing while we have it. That's right. Any other questions? Item 5.
Item 5 is our Georgia Leader and Educator Acceleration and Development System, Georgia Leads Pilot Participation Grant. The purpose of this grant is to provide funding to local education agencies to assist in the pilot phase of the Georgia Leads implementation. The total grant amount is not to exceed $5,160,000.
Very good. Any questions or comments?
Is there someone to bring us up to date on the pilot?
Sure. Dr. Aldridge is here. Dr. Aldridge.
Actually, I'm going to defer to the department, the director, and give specific feedback.
Very good.
Good morning.
Morning.
We're very pleased to announce that we have begun the implementation phase of the Georgia Leads pilot. During the spring period, we actually had leadership sessions with all of our teacher observers as well as school level leaders to talk about what are the elements of kind of shifting a mindset to a growth-oriented system. And so we wanted to make sure that we were supporting them in those efforts. We also worked with them to make decisions about implementation. So we didn't want to just build the plane while we were flying it. We wanted to make sure that we took plenty of time to help give them the information they needed. So in July, we had our teacher orientation sessions, where we actually met with all of the teachers who will be participating in the program. And so now we have begun full implementation in all 12 of our school districts. And with that, our specialists will be able to come in and support the observers as well as the teachers as they work through this pilot system, collect information from them, and continue to update the process.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I guess this is, so Georgia Leads is the purpose is to help me out a little bit more.
Sure. The purpose is to create a system that's designed to support our teachers and our leaders so that they can really develop and provide instruction for our students that's better going to meet their needs. So if you can imagine making sure that we're giving tightly focused feedback on performance, and we're helping the observers be able to give them that feedback, and we're helping the teachers be able to grow in their practice.
So is it something that is, we're developing it because of the TEKS and LEAKS program? Are we trying to find something that might replace TEKS and LEAKS? Is that the...
So yes, TEKS and LEAKS has been sort of the foundation of the work that we've done in evaluation. And so as we know, there's been a lot of changes and needs in our educational landscape. And so we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our teachers, our leaders, and our school communities.
Yeah, if the board wants, we can have a presentation on this. I've talked with Latif, and it's really good work. So looking at both TEKS and LEAKS, we can arrange that if you would like.
Be happy to.
And this is another ESSER funded project. So it's good while it's here. Any other questions or comments? Item 6.
Item 6 is a contract for our PC Genesis code conversion. The PC Genesis is a financial software tool used by more than 130 districts for accounting and reporting operations. I believe you'll find out the amount of this contract in the executive session.
Correct. Any questions or comments?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
How many systems use that system?
It's over 130, so out of the 188.
The reason I'm asking is you see in the news reports of like the CAB, for example, with the changeover for their accounting systems. So they're not.
I don't believe the CAB does. I do not believe the CAB uses it.
Can't hear.
I said I don't believe the CAB uses it. I can check that. I think they were switching over their payroll system. I'll check on how they report their financial.
Right.
This has been, or PC Genesis has been around a long time.
It's a stable platform that works.
Held together with
What's
Band-Aids.
the other one? There's another one that was used too. What was that? You know, what was the other one that was used, the financial platform, other than
They've
Genesis?
used PC Genesis since the 80s, I think. The state uses PeopleSoft. Teamworks.
Come on now.
Yeah, but Russ, I've not seen the state's looking it up, changing over, is that correct?
Yeah, the state financial system, they are actually looking at moving away from Teamworks. And they're doing some pilot work on what that's going to take in the next 2-3 years.
Yeah.
So we should have which, in my understanding, the Teamworks has been kind of a product that we've had to modify for the state anyways. So,
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Item 7.
Item 7 is a contract with Mythix, Inc. This contract will provide Oracle Cloud infrastructure and consulting services to support the agency's data collections and financial applications technical infrastructure. The total contract amount is not to exceed $284,060.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Item 8.
Item 8 is a grant for Stronger Connections grant program. The purpose of this item is to receive funds from the U.S. Department of Education for the development of a competitive grant for local education agencies to implement strategies to create safe and healthy environments for all students. The total grant amount is not to exceed $33,444,267.
Any questions or comments? Ms. Ross.
Yes, let's just speak a little bit about this, because this is,
Mr. Dillon, will you please give us a summary of this, please?
we got a taste of it at Yale, but it's, yeah.
Morning.
Morning.
The Biden administration put out a grant for $33 million, but they're giving the states wide flexibility in how they choose to implement that grant. And so later on, you're going to see an additional request to receive or to allocate $14 million to a certain number of LEAs. But I would say that based on the things that have happened in the news, the administration put out, certainly guidance that they wanted to focus on safety, education, prevention items, make sure that schools were shored up their base with safety elements and things like that. But the bigger thing would be probably the next item. That would be the receiving of funds for the 74 LEAs. 74.
Justin, I see that this funding is taken through 2026. Are we going to get the same allocation every fiscal year, or?
No, it'll give them that amount of time to spend the funds.
Okay, so this is a one-time.
Correct. Well, this is round 1. We're going to be proposing a round 2.
Right. Okay. But this $33 million is it?
That's right.
Okay. All right. Any other questions about receiving the funds? Okay. Move on to item 9.
Number 9 is actually the Safer School, Georgia Schools Round 1. This purpose of this grant is to create safe and healthy environments for all students. We are total grant amount of $14,889,117.
All right, Justin, come back up.
Glad to.
All right. Questions, Ms. Ross?
Well, I think, the little taste that we got at Yale of some of this.
Sure.
I think if you would just reiterate all of that, because I don't think everybody's heard it, but this has a whole mixture of that whole child that's coming around.
It really does, but the states are given the ability, in coordination with the governor's office, to kind of focus on some priority areas. And our review of 134 applications, I'd probably summarize the requests from the schools in kind of three big buckets. I would say equipment purchases, training, and personnel. When it comes to equipment, you can imagine that districts are going to be requesting to shore up their base when it comes to cameras. So there's been a lot of applications that have cameras, access control improvements, and also ballistic window film. That's the three common areas. There's, of course, a lot of variability in those applications. When it comes to training, violence and bully prevention, so you can imagine that'd be a pretty popular request. Crisis intervention, so how to react to a crisis once it's occurred. And then, of course, mental health and trauma awareness, which would go part and parcel to making your school a much safer location. And then lastly, the third bucket, I would say personnel. A lot of districts have requests to add additional security officers, so SROs, and of course that certainly meets the threshold. Safety coordinators, an official that can be funded to coordinate the activities in coordination with GMA, the DOE, local EMAs, and things like that. And then also school social workers to do site visits to make sure that students' health and mental wellness is being addressed as well. Those are the three common areas. Every district that applied, or any district that did not get awarded, we followed up with every district, and so allowed them to see, hey, this is why you didn't get it, and there's going to be a round two, and we're providing some technical assistance. Some districts that got partial awarded cash, certainly they're going to have the chance to apply for the second round as well. We've already established those webinar dates and things like that. So we've had 38 DOE staff review the 134 applications across 7. To Mr. Wood's points about our working together in the agency, they represent 7 different DOE divisions. So we really canvassed the agency to make sure that everybody was looking at these applications.
I requested all the grant applications in my district and read them. And they're a wide range of what they're using it for. So it gives them a lot of flexibility. If you are interested in what's being done in your district, get Justin to send you the application for your district.
I'd be glad to, and I can also send you the rubric that we used to establish the cut scores and how we looked at those things as well. The important thing is to know that any district that might be where you're representing, we've had personal contact with each and every one of them, so they have one-on-one technical assistance to say, hey, this is why the application wasn't accepted, but yet there's still hope for October 2nd when we announce that coming out. And then we project that the January board meeting is when the second round applications will be coming here.
When's the next grant cycle due, Justin? Have you announced it yet?
We haven't announced it, but it's forthcoming.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very good. Item 10 and 11 are contract 3250. Any questions for items 10 or 11? Hearing none, the committee has heard items 1 through 11. Do not have any objection to moving those items to the consent agenda tomorrow. Hearing none, any other business for this committee? Chairman, the Budget Committee stands adjourned.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right, we have about 7 minutes before the Rules Committee, which of course we have to wait because we're online. So we'll take a break and we will come back at 11 o'clock promptly. Have coffee, go to the restroom, talk to people, do what they're doing. I'll be back at 11.
Middle round of that.
When you reviewed those items,
And I was just like, wait a minute. Big ship gavel. All right, we'll get started. It's 11:02. We'll get started with our budget committee, but before we do, I hope you all, rules committee, I'm sorry, we did budget. I'm all confused there. Again, I like to show off Macon, and so while we were taking a break, we have Z-Beans Coffee, which is from Macon, Georgia. It was started by a Mercer, some Mercer students, and the Z stands for, I think it's Zaruma, Ecuador, which is where all the coffee comes from. And so Z-Beans was founded here in Macon. There are a couple in Macon. There's one in Warner Robins. I think there's one in Florida now. I think there's one up in Athens. And so we're enjoying Ecuadorian coffee that's Macon-based, I guess. Again, featuring Middle Georgia restaurants, and you know, I'm just excited that y'all are here. So anyway, we will move on to Rules Committee, not budget. We did budget, rules.
Yes, sir.
And I will turn to Mr. Mason. And Vice Chair, do you have a quorum?
We do have a quorum, and we have Dr. Taylor, and we have 5 items.
All right, the first item on our agenda is a request to adopt the rule amendment to State Board of Education Rule 160-3-1-.07, testing programs, student assessment. So this rule is being amended to incorporate the following changes. First, to update the mathematics and English courses that will be assessed with the Georgia Milestones End of Course and Georgia Alternate Assessment 2.0 as a result of newly approved standards. To add the dyslexia and universal reading screening requirements for students in kindergarten through grade 3 and provide for an exemption of the GKIDS ELA portion for kindergartens being screened through the dyslexia and universal reading screeners. And to provide general cleanup updates related to the state's English language proficiency assessment and related guidance. The state's alternate assessment aligned with the alternate academic achievement standards and related descriptions. The dual enrollment, advanced placement, and international baccalaureate EOC exemption for U.S. history, and the names of reference testing administration materials. At the July 2023 meeting, the board approved the initiation of this rule to be posted for public review and comments, and it has been posted for at least 30 days.
I have a comment on this item, and for all of us, but for new board members, this is a great item to look at the red line version. Because as policy shifts, department's language shifts, our language shifts. And this is a good one to look at how our most recent policies and the updated language that follows. And so I just want to point to that one, the red line version, so you can actually see how, because you're familiar with everything there, but how the language changes and how we're bound by that policy. So any other questions or comments for item 1? Thank you, sir.
Oh, I did have a question. I read the public comment that you sent us recently, and there was a lot of it in there, but I did find it one particular about the definition of using the term in the definition, and I know all of that will be taken into consideration. My question is more of a procedural one. Now that we're at the point of adoption, is it possible to adopt any small changes in definitions or other parts of the assessment rule, or any rule, I guess, without having to put it back on the table for another 30 days?
I would leave that to our general counsel, but I'm pretty sure she would say no. We'd probably bring it back for another 30 days. In terms of, in context of the comments provided for the definitions provided and changes in the rule obviously came from the New Georgia Early Literacy Act 538, and so those definitions were pulled from the rule. So we wanted to I can stick to those definitions as closely as possible, noting that context and additional information will be provided in guidance to districts and schools as they're navigating how to implement.
All right, so you're telling me the definition of the screener came from 538?
The definition for the universal screener, we referenced the list of universal screeners, but the definition for the universal screener and the foundational literacy came from the legislation, yes.
Okay. I think the point that was made about using the term in the definition of the term problematic. and I'm sure all of our English majors out there would probably agree with me. And I don't, maybe time is of the essence, but I do think that we probably need to take a look at that before we move for adoption. And there's obviously a lot of other commentary as part of that. But I do think that from a grammatical standpoint, we need to be very careful about how we define our terms. Having said that, you're telling me if we make one minor change, that we need to put it back out for public comment.
Yes.
And I'm seeing heads nodding. Okay. And this will be pulled for a separate vote?
Ms. Grimes?
I was breathing. No. I tend to agree with Stan because the screeners are the most important things that we have, that we've learned through the dyslexia law and now through this. And if we don't get this language correct, then that hiccup will always be there. People are going to be. So, I just think that that's so important. That's one of the most important things we've learned. We can take that to the bank, how important those screeners are. If we don't get it right there, we won't. So, I agree with Stan. Maybe we need to take it. I thought you could make a minor change, but that might be considered too major. I'm asking between the time.
I don't think you can. I think if you make any amendments, it resets. Because you have to get public comment on the new, because any change is a substantive change, whether it's minor or not.
You're right. You're putting that in importance.
Yeah, see.
I got you.
So, but that is our, now we use our agenda to make those changes. Now we know the procedures, but to my initial comments, the language and how we communicate is important. Yes, Mr. Smith.
Well, I'm listening to what Helen and Stan are saying, but do we have any proposed changes that we know we want to make?
Right? The
There's proposals. I would recommend that we amend the definition of the word screener so that the word screener is not in turn included in the definition of the term screener.
Align with HB 538. So,
Well, I'm not, I'm reminded of somebody asked me once, what's the difference in majoring in consumer economics and economics? And the answer was, well, this is economics for consumers. And I went, that's not, you haven't answered my question. But I don't want to get stuck on a small point here, but I think we need to clarify that.
So
we need to get it right.
Yes, and we're going to, this is already going to be pulled, and we can have more discussion on this with maybe a little more informed solution to this particular definition.
Dr. Taylor, is there any time constraints that this is under at this time? In other words, again, I'm just to the board. If you need to have a call board meeting to address this one issue or something, that we can do that. But I'm just asking, okay, we got to have another 30 days. What does this look like?
Yeah, the only time constraint at this point would just be the GKIDS ELA exemption for those systems that are already working with their universal screeners and are in the midst of their GKIDS implementation right now.
July 1, 2024, universal screening approved, and we've already done a lot of that already. And initiate reading screener usage is August 2024, so.
Yeah, I don't think we're under any time constraints as far as 538 is concerned, but I think Superintendent's questions is a great one. Are there any other constraints that delaying this until September is going to put us behind the eight ball?
That's just the only one I mentioned.
Yeah, because the schools and districts they're free to use, they've already chosen a
Already.
screener, and so that, it does not have an impact on them at that.
Hold on, let everyone, we're having a bunch of conversations. I couldn't hear you, Superintendent.
I was just asking that with our districts who are currently, if they've chosen screeners, they're implementing, this would not have an impact. I mean, because really, we're just talking about semantics at this point. So it doesn't change, what they choose, what they can choose, or anything of that, correct?
Well, yes, but just to clarify, if we pull this and amend it tomorrow, right, if we amend it with the language that we want to change as a red line, if you will, then the 30 days begins once it's posted then. And we can still vote on it at the September meeting. We don't have to then have a new proposal in September, wait 30 days and call a meeting or do it at the end of October.
Well, that's a tight turnaround. I'll have to get it posted Friday.
Not necessarily, because our meeting is September. What's the date of our meeting? It would be
27th and 28th.
And we're looking at a minute change here.
Right.
So
They will have to post it Friday.
yes.
Assuming that's the only change that's made, but yes.
That's just a tight turnaround. So.
Well, I would recommend if we want to do that, that people have the I's dotted and T's crossed for what the proposed amendment will be when we have our meeting tomorrow.
If we want changes, let's do that now and have a proposed change tomorrow.
Okay. Any other comments on item 1?
Again, Dr. Taylor, posting on Friday would be no issue, is that correct?
That wouldn't be a problem.
Provided we don't rewrite the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah.
As long as we have it in hand, we can make it happen. So.
All right. And for the record, I want to note that Helen agreed with me.
I know. I just
I want that in the minutes.
This is a red letter.
it's there.
Item 2. She didn't say kind of. She kind of. Well, I'll take that.
Item number 2 is a request to adopt the CTAE standards for entertainment, sports, and event management pathway. The increased demand in Clark County for hospitality labor and the partnerships between Clark County School District and local businesses are the driving forces behind the development of this pathway. Clark County School System, along with multiple local businesses, industry partners, secondary institutions, and the Department of Education collaborated to create a secondary career pathway designed to help students transition smoothly into the in-demand hospitality industry. These standards were approved for public review and comment at the July meeting of the State Board and have been posted for at least 30 days.
Any questions or comments?
One thing great about this is that with our CTA or DOE is that these districts can actually ask for courses and they can come in and work. They did one in our Clean Academy that you experienced here when you came. And I think that's, again, here's the adaptability and the flexibility that we need with reaching our kids. And I was, even in the ag programs that are now going into elementary and middle school this year. It's just lots of good things to do.
CTA has done a wonderful with not just responding to industry, but being, bringing industry to the table and with districts to create. I mean, this is very unique, but it fits, Clark County and others as we grow across the state. So, any other comments? Yes.
Anybody from Dr. Walsh?
Yeah, we have the next 2 items. You want to come on up, Sandy?
Here's a question. I'll let wrap it up hallway.
And if we've got speakers that are going to make a comment. I've been told they can't hear online, so come up here. Thank you.
So what was the question again?
Is there anything you would like to share with us about this?
Well, it made it in the Athens magazine.
That's what I wanted.
And the people over there are the Chamber of Commerce.
The pathway made it in the Athens magazine.
It's in the bottom paragraph here on this whole spread dealing with the Athens Classic Center and the hospitality industry. So they're very proud of
this, they will have kids already in the first course, which is an existing course. Right now, they're on a 4x4 schedule. So this will roll in just in time for January, so they can take the second course, which will be the new course. Next fall, the third course, finishing up with work-based learning at the Classic Center. So we do a lot of just in time. But it's good. They're happy.
Item 3.
Item number 3 is a request to post the standards for the elementary school construction courses for public review and comments. These standards for kindergarten through 5th grade were developed by educators and industry representatives and were informed by the input and expertise of a public elementary school in Georgia that has piloted a construction course and the not-for-profit organization Construction Ready. If approved, the standards will be posted for 30 days for public review and comment.
This one, I'm so curious about how K-5 math standards weave their way in and out of some of the activities and projects the students will do, because giving that context for early geometry, just understanding measurements is exciting. As a parent of elementary school children who struggle in procedural math, but can, love to build and love to design, I think this is a great opportunity.
And the children at Mountain Park Elementary in North Fulton have been doing a pilot with Construction Ready for the last several years. And we were out there this spring, and Mr. Woods went for a visit along with Dr. Wall and several other folks. And to watch those little children just be excited and to do things, and the things that they were allowed to do at that young age. And they're starting to teach them how to really read a ruler when they're young, because I know when I taught middle school, they couldn't read a ruler, and we would have to do that. And heaven forbid we'd get a micrometer, because 100th of an inch is just not even in their world. So starting young, we have Ag Ed already in our offerings in the elementary school. This is our first one of our other 16 clusters that we're rolling out. And Construction Ready has been very supportive. They've been helping develop actual, what we would call years ago, a curriculum guide. Yeah. So there are lessons, there are examples, there are designs, there's pictures showing step-by-step of how to produce the different components. So looking at this in the elementary level of exposure, rolling into the middle school of exploration, then finishing up in the high school with engagement, and then hopefully they'll either go into the world of work or go into some sort of post-secondary program related to their experiences in the K-12 environment. So we're excited. It looks like it would be fun to do. I mean, those little folks were really excited.
He teaches middle school, and he does all this integrated math with them, and it was a class for girls. There were not boys in there, and they were measuring the walls like fences that go around things. They were looking at rulers, and not only rulers, but some flashing things within it. I'm excited because I think this is going to be an opportunity for kids.
Roger, where's the pilot again? I'm sorry.
Mountain Park Elementary in Fulton County. So
they have two.
Roswell.
Yeah, they have two feeder schools as well. So I know.
So they go
pathway.
from there to Elkins Point or Crabapple.
Yeah, Crabapple was one. Yeah.
Roswell High School.
Yeah, I was hoping to go Monday until I got some jury duty. So.
You can go out and listen to some of that. Yeah, I mean that's a pretty big.
Ms. Campbell.
This is exciting, especially people have a son like one of my sons who can't stay home. So this is one he loves to build and things with his hands, and I'm just excited. I'm like, oh,
And the girls are very precise.
Yes.
and they were actually doing some of the better work, and that day we were visiting. So,
Martha, could you arrange a visit after our next board meeting?
possibly, we
Okay.
could do that. They get so many visitors, we wouldn't be that far-fetched for them to accept it.
Okay.
Item 4.
Item number 4 is a request to post the standards for the new mental health professional for public review and comment. Department of Administrative Services Workforce Strategic Initiative with Social Services emphasized a significant need for professionals in the area of mental health. The CTAE division collaborated with behavioral health professionals, teachers, and other Georgia government agencies to develop these core standards. This course, which was requested by the Office of Governor Kemp, will introduce a new mental health pathway that will educate high school students on mental and behavioral health and wellness. The pathway will consist of the existing Introduction to Healthcare and Essentials of Healthcare courses as the first and second courses, and the new Mental Health Professional course as the third course in the pathway. If approved, the standards will be posted for 30 days for public review and comment.
We have these items will, of course, on our agenda, be posted on our. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, this is Martha. I have a quick comment. This is such an important one that it really goes together with what a lot of schools are doing to try to help in this particular area of mental health. But I am so excited to see this on the agenda and to see what we're going to be able to do with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Dr. Young.
Well, I agree with Martha, but and remember last year we had the head of pediatrics from the Children's Hospital in Augusta come and talk about how Georgia is the last in the country in access to mental health services for children, and anything we can do to help move the needle on that, I think is great.
Are any comments on this?
Well, we're asking you to put it out for
I
public
know,
comment.
did you,
But
in
we had,
conversation, I
there
realize
was
that.
a big task force,
Uh-huh.
and the need of professionals in the mental health area is so great in Georgia. They just don't have the people. So they want to reach down and get it, kids in high school to know that this is an option. And there are some certifications that they can gain at, upon graduation at 18 that they can go in and be, for lack of a para, like we have parapros in schools. This would be like a para with a certified psychiatrist or mental health person. So they can start at an entry level and work their way up and keep going to school and so forth. But most kids, when they're in our healthcare programs at school, do not realize that this is such a severe need, and it even exists because they're used to seeing a doctor or a nurse or whatever, unless the kid has had services from the mental health side. They just don't know it exists. So we're trying to get people into that arena. And we're also working with the technical college because they are lacking in the arena as well.
So our antenna was up with DOE and the community's antenna was up too, so you just kind of made a great match.
When they were part of that committee with the Department of Administrative Services, and they just talked about how can we get people into this profession, it led to the development of the course and the pathway, and those folks have been stellar partners in this development. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
All right, last item.
For item number 5, the Georgia Foundation for Public Education is requesting the State Board appoint Drew Eccles to the Foundation's Board of Directors. The Official Code of Georgia Annotated, Section 20-2-14.1, provides that the Georgia Foundation for Public Education shall be governed by a Board of Directors composed of 5 to 15 members as determined by the State School Superintendent. Members of the Board of Directors shall be appointed by either the State School Superintendent or the State Board of Education, And for every 3 board members appointed by the state school superintendent, the State Board of Education may appoint 2 board members.
Yes, and so GFPE, as you all know, has been growing leaps and bounds, and we're excited to have this opportunity to add a new board member. And I believe Mr. Woods, was this your recommendation, or is this from our board?
I believe this is the board recommendation.
This was the board recommendation. Mr. Eccles has an extension. Y'all may know about, I think he may have presented with us before, great leadership in agricultural education in Hall County. It's going to bring a lot to our board as, again, as policies change, as our priorities change. I think the need across the state for what GFPE provides for school districts, Mr. Eccles will be able to expand that vision for the foundation. Any other questions or comments?
And I would just add, I mean, this appreciate Ms. Zoller. This came through her again.
Oh, this was Martha. Thank you, Martha.
Yeah, so we had several people, and we're looking at 2 others as well. But we are trying to diversify the board to give us an overall group that reflects the state. And so this was a need that we really did not have a lot of representation up in her district. So.
Absolutely. There's been a desire geographically to get people from all over the north. I represent the state board on the foundation.
Yeah, but you serve from being as the superintendent, right?
Yeah, yes.
No, that's great. Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Mr. Chairman, Rules Committee is adjourned.
All right, we have all the items to move to the consent agenda,
Yes.
except for number 1, which is pulled for separate vote. Items 2 through 5. All right. Very good. Well, we will move on to our District Flexibility and Charter School Committee, and I will thank Mr. Scott Sweeney.
Thank you, Chairman Downey. We do have a quorum, so we have 2 items before us, and we'll turn this over to Ms. Taylor.
All right, item number 1 on our agenda is a request to approve the charter school renewal for George Walton Comprehensive High School. The Cobb County Board of Education approved Walton's charter petition on April 22nd, 2023. The mission of George Walton Comprehensive High School is to educate, inspire, and empower its students. Walton will serve approximately 2,650 students in grades 9 through 12 during its charter term, with a focus on advanced placement, honors, and college preparatory course options at all grade levels, an innovative English learners model utilizing dual certified teachers to build academic language within and between content areas, and a partnership with Northside Hospital to enhance and support Walton's sports medicine CTAE pathway. On August 11, 2023, the Charter Advisory Committee voted unanimously to recommend the approval of George Walton Comprehensive High School's charter school contract for a 5-year term. If approved, Walton's new contract would expire on June 30th, 2028. We do have on the line Mr. Richard Tischler, principal of Walton High School, along with their board chair, and I believe Dr. Isan Katula, the Cobb County liaison for their charter schools.
Fantastic. I see some familiar faces. Richard, it's good to hear from you. Congratulations on the big win you had the other night, the Corky Kell Classic. Love to hear your comments about Walton High School.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with everybody. Obviously, Walton has had a lot of academic success, and we really tailor that back to the charter school. It allows us to be very innovative. It allows us to quickly move on students' needs inside of our building. And so that's just one of the many reasons that we really push for this charter. Our community pushes for the charter because it does allow us to really focus in on our students and do what is best for them, educational.
Mr. Katula, it's great to see you as well.
Nice
Any comments you care to share?
Yes, thank you, and good morning, Superintendent and the board. I appreciate the invitation to this meeting. I send greetings from Mr. Ragsdale to everybody. We look at George Walton High School as the gem of Georgia. We call it the gem of Georgia because it is one of the two schools that are always performing the state standards, national standards. They're always in competition with Gwinnett Science and Math academics. Academically, they have great foundations. They work very hard for the community. But really, the Walton Charter speaks on behalf of the parents and the community that it resolves. As Mr. Tischler and the board chair, Ms. Nisa, have always said, we are here to serve what the needs of our communities is, and this charter allows for that flexibility to be implemented based on the needs of the parents. So again, thank you for having us here.
Does anybody have any questions? All right, thank you all very much. Can we move this to consent agenda? All right, we'll be moving this to the consent agenda for tomorrow's consideration.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Taylor?
Item number 2 is the affirmation of state charter school approvals. On July 26, 2023, the State Charter Schools Commission approved charter contracts for the following schools: Excelsior Village Academies, serving grades kindergarten through 8, for a contract term of 5 years, with the attendance zone of Atlanta Public Schools and Clayton, DeKalb, and Fulton counties, as well as Movement School Athens, which will serve grades kindergarten through 12 with a 5-year contract in Clark County. The official Code of Georgia annotated, section 20-2-2083, states that the State Board of Education shall review and may overrule the approval or renewal of a state charter school by the Commission within 60 days of such a decision by the Commission upon a majority vote of the members of the State Board. Rather than leave open for 60 days the question of whether the State Board will overrule the Commission's approval of a new or renewed state charter, the practice of the State Board since 2013 has been to formally affirm or overrule all new or renewed state charters. We also have in person Mr. Donovan Head, Executive Director of the State Charter Schools Commission. Are there any questions?
Does anybody have any questions or comments? Put Donovan in his new role. I want to welcome Donovan Head in his new role.
Morning, everybody.
Morning,
good to see you in this new role. I will say one of the best parts about having this job is I get to work with each of you probably more closely. But both of these schools were approved prior to my coming here, so I do want to turn this over to our General Counsel, Saran Locke.
Thank you. We appreciate your consideration of these as always. I think Tiffany did a great job on generally the overview. One thing I just want to highlight for you all is these are two schools that were approved consistent with our strategic plan, which is to provide options in areas of the state where there are limited or few charter choices. These two schools are located in areas where there are no other charter schools. So we're very, very happy about that, being able to move our mission and our strategic plan forward. And we hope that you will move this to the consent agenda. We're happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Does anybody have any questions? Seeing none, can we move this to the consent agenda? All right, without objection. Fantastic. All right, thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, and Ms. Taylor, I believe that concludes the affairs. Is there any other new matters or items of consideration we need to talk about? Hearing none, the District Flexibility and Charter Committee is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. I understand we'll move items 1 and 2 to consent, and I thank you. And at this time, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing personnel and or legal matters. Second. Second is Kenmore. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Mark. All right, we will be in executive session. We will come out when we're done and adjourn today's committee meeting. But we're going to be